Welcome to The Explainer. So, you know that feeling when you just hit an absolute brick wall right around 2 p.m.? You're staring blankly at your screen and you're just wondering where on earth your mental energy went. Well, you're definitely not alone. Trying to maintain razor-sharp focus, remember complex details, and just keep our mental energy stable, it's a universal struggle these days. But what if that brain fog isn't just an inevitable part of living a busy life? What if it's actually the direct result of how we're treating our body's most critical machine? All right, let's just dive right in. The reality is our brains are physical engines. And honestly, just like a high-performance sports car, they are completely dependent on exactly what kind of fuel we put in the tank and what time of day we decide to push them to the limit. A lot of times we expect peak output while giving ourselves low-grade input and totally ignoring our natural biological rhythms. But the science shows us that with just a few smart, targeted tweaks to our diets and our daily schedules, we can absolutely transform our cognitive performance. In this explainer, we're building your comprehensive playbook. We're going to start with fuel for peak performance. Then we'll untangle the caffeine and tea paradox, look at timing your cognitive load, and finally put it all together into your ultimate brain playbook. Let's get to it. Starting off with Section 1, Fuel for Peak Performance. Let's tackle a situation we all know way too well. That crippling pre-interview anxiety, or that midday slump where you just can't think straight. When the stakes are high, what you eat right before you need to perform is absolutely crucial.
So, what does a high-stakes diet actually look like? Well, research shows that throwing leafy greens like spinach and kale into the mix acts like a massive shield against oxidative stress. That's what hones your mental sharpness and helps you pull up information fast under pressure. Next, you've got to swap out those fast-burning sugars for lean proteins. Think poultry or fish. That's going to stop those brutal glycemic crashes and give you incredibly stable, long-lasting energy. And finally, to fight off physical stress, you need magnesium and iodine. Foods like boiled eggs, nuts, or even dried seaweed literally decrease the chemical stressors floating around in your body, lifting your baseline mood and ultimately boosting your confidence.
But here is where it gets incredibly cool, especially when we talk about eggs. They're packed with a nutrient called choline. But it isn't just standard choline. Egg yolk choline exists as a phospholipid. And that specific molecular shape, it allows it to easily slip right past the blood-brain barrier. Once it gets inside your brain, it literally transforms into acetylcholine. That's a critical neurotransmitter that acts as your brain's primary messaging system for memory, learning, and keeping your attention locked in. To keep that whole internal messaging system firing on all cylinders, the recommended daily intake of choline is about 550 milligrams for men and 425 milligrams for women. And because egg yolk choline is absorbed so efficiently, it's honestly one of the absolute best dietary defenses we have against cognitive decline and even Alzheimer's. Moving right along to Section 2, the caffeine and tea paradox. Because, let's be real, if we're talking about cognitive fuel, we have to talk about the most popular stimulant on Earth. We all love caffeine for the focus, but we kind of hate the jitters, right? Well, that brings us to a fascinating double-blind study on a very famous biohacking trick, stacking caffeine with L-theanine, which is an amino acid you naturally find in tea.
Before we start mixing things, what is caffeine actually doing in there? It triggers this wild physiological thing called neurovascular uncoupling. Meaning, when you consume caffeine, it restricts oxygenated blood flow to your prefrontal cortex. It is literally reducing the fuel supply to your brain. And yet, despite that restricted blood flow, caffeine somehow consistently manages to spike your attention, speed up your reaction times, and boost your overall mood.
And this perfectly captures the paradox. A ton of people stack caffeine with L-theanine, hoping to keep that laser focus but ditch the physical jitters. On its own, caffeine restricts blood flow but sharpens the mind. But look what happened when researchers tested the combination at the exact ratios you'd find in a normal cup of tea, which is 75 milligrams of caffeine to 50 milligrams of L-theanine. Adding the L-theanine completely reversed the blood flow restriction, bringing everything back to normal. But it also entirely wiped out the cognitive focus and mood benefits of the caffeine. The faster reaction times, the accuracy, just completely vanished.
And get this, there was another totally surprising twist in the study. You'd probably assume the L-theanine would calm your cardiovascular system down, right? Actually, scratch that. Combining the two at these specific ratios led to a higher spike in systolic blood pressure than just taking the caffeine all by itself. It really challenges the whole idea that this specific stack is some flawless, magic bullet for mental performance.
Which brings us to Section 3, timing your cognitive load. Because having the right fuel,
That's really only half the puzzle. The other half is knowing exactly when to hit the gas pedal. If you find yourself having to reread the same paragraph 5 times, the fix actually lies in chronobiology, basically syncing your hard work up with your body's internal clock. So, here is what a perfectly optimized, science-backed day looks like. Right after waking up, around 8 a.m., your brain is rested and completely primed for processing fresh knowledge. By 10 a.m., you hit your absolute sweet spot. Your core body temperature naturally rises, you hit peak alertness, and that is the time to tackle your hardest, most complex problems. If you happen to miss that window, no worries. Just wait for your circadian rhythm's second wind, usually between 4 and 6 p.m., to review critical stuff. Finally, doing some reading right before bed, say around 9 p.m., signals your brain to relax. Then, as you sleep, it actively consolidates all those new memories, locking them in for the long haul.
Now, to actually maximize these focus blocks, you've got to pair them with the right behaviors. Number 1, always try to read or work under natural light. It helps regulate that circadian rhythm we just talked about and drastically cuts down on eye strain. Number 2, you have to balance your food intake before a deep work session. If you're starving, you can't focus. If you just ate a massive meal, you're going to feel sluggish. A light meal or just a handful of nuts is the sweet spot. And third, this is the big one. Do your heavy cognitive lifting consistently at the exact same time every single day. Routine is what builds those strong, predictable neural connections.
Finally, Section 4, your ultimate brain playbook. This is where we bring it all together. The big takeaway here is synthesizing all of this into one cohesive lifestyle. We can't treat our nutrition and our daily schedules as totally separate things if we actually want to reach our peak cognitive potential. It really all boils down to this. Optimizing your mental habits is entirely about timing and aligning with your natural rhythms. Think about it. You could eat a completely flawless diet, tons of leafy greens, lean proteins, that egg yolk choline, but if you're trying to learn a dense new subject right after a heavy lunch while fighting off a natural afternoon slump, you are just wasting your brain's resources. The right nutrients only give you that maximum impact when you pair them intelligently with your body's natural clock.
So I want to leave you with this final thought. How much of your daily potential are you literally just leaving on the table by fighting your biology instead of working with it? Just think about your current routines. Tomorrow morning, before you pour that first cup of coffee, maybe ask yourself if it's what your brain actually needs in that moment, or if a smarter breakfast and a better timed focus block could change the whole game for you. The science is clear, the playbook is right there in your hands, and now it's time to optimize your engine.